There's a moment that changes everything. It happens when you realize that the person staring back at you in the mirror isn't a victim of circumstances, but the architect of their own destiny. That moment happened to a young man who grew up in poverty, watching his father struggle to put food on the table. Every night he heard the same words echoing through their small house: "We can't afford it, we'll never have enough. Rich people are just lucky." But something stirred within this young man's mind. Instead of accepting these thoughts as truth, he began to question them. What if poverty wasn't permanent? What if success wasn't reserved for others? What if the thoughts that filled his mind each day were actually creating his reality? You see, there's a farmer who plants corn in his field every spring, and he doesn't plant corn expecting wheat to grow. He plants corn because he knows with absolute certainty that corn is what will emerge from the soil. Your mind works exactly the same way. The thoughts you plant today become the reality you harvest tomorrow. Right now, at this very moment, you are living the result of thoughts you planted weeks, months, and years ago. The relationships in your life, the work you do, the amount of joy you feel when you open your eyes each morning, all of it springs from the dominant thoughts that have been growing in your mind. This isn't wishful thinking, this is the most practical truth you'll ever encounter. You become what you think about. Not sometimes, not when conditions are perfect, always. Walk through any city and you'll see the proof everywhere. Every building, every bridge, every beautiful garden first existed as a thought in someone's mind. The person who designed that magnificent cathedral didn't start with bricks and mortar. They started with a vision, an idea, a dominant thought that refused to be ignored. If thoughts can create such magnificent structures around us, what do you think they're creating within us? Yet, most people stumble through life never grasping this fundamental principle. They drift from day to day, letting their minds wander like leaves in the wind, thinking whatever thoughts happen to blow their way, and then they wonder why their lives lack direction, purpose, and meaning. They're like that farmer who throws seeds randomly across his field, some corn here, some weeds there, maybe a flower or two in the corner, then acts shocked when harvest time arrives and he finds chaos instead of abundance. What are you planting in the fertile soil of your mind today? Are you carefully selecting thoughts that will bloom into the life you dream of, or are you letting weeds choke out your potential? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people spend more mental energy thinking about what they fear than what they desire. They rehearse their worries instead of their victories. They replay their failures instead of visualizing their success. They focus on problems instead of solutions. Consider two men who both lose their jobs on the same day. The first man spends his time thinking about how unfair life is, how impossible it will be to find something better, how the world is working against him. What kind of opportunities do you think will present themselves to a mind focused on impossibility? The second man immediately begins thinking about this setback as a setup for something greater, a doorway to the career he's always imagined, a chance to prove what he's truly capable of. Which man do you believe will find meaningful work first? The difference isn't education. It isn't connections. It isn't luck. The difference is in the direction of their thoughts, because thoughts determine what we notice, how we interpret what we see, and most importantly, what actions we take. Your mind is the supreme force in your personal world. It's more powerful than any external circumstance, more influential than any person in your life, more important than your past or your present situation. Because your mind creates the lens through which you view everything, and that lens determines your reality. Two people can witness the exact same event and walk away with completely different experiences. One sees impossibility, the other sees opportunity. One sees problems, the other sees potential. One sees reasons why something can't work, the other sees ways to make it happen. Nothing in the external world has changed. What's different is the mental framework through which they're processing their experience, and that framework is built from their dominant thoughts. Here's the most liberating truth you'll ever hear. You have absolute control over this framework. You have complete power over what you choose to think about. No person can force a thought into your mind. No circumstance can make you focus on failure instead of success. No situation can control the direction of your mental energy unless you surrender that control. Think about that for a moment. In a world where so many forces seem beyond your control, here stands something that belongs entirely to you. Your thoughts are your private property, your personal kingdom, your sovereign territory. Nobody can trespass there without your permission. Yet most people treat their minds like a busy marketplace where anyone can set up shop. They let worried friends dump their anxieties into their consciousness. They allow pessimistic relatives to plant seeds of doubt about their dreams. They give complete strangers permission to fill their mental space with fear, limitation, and negativity through newspapers, gossip, and idle chatter. And then they wonder why their lives feel chaotic, unfulfilled, and directionless. Here's a question that will change your life. What if you guarded your mind as carefully as you guard your home? What if you became as selective about the thoughts you allow to take root as you are about the people you invite to dinner? What if you treated your mental space as the sacred ground it truly is? There was once a woman who worked as a seamstress in a small shop. Every day she heard the same conversations around her. Complaints about difficult customers, gossip about other workers, endless discussions about how hard life was and how little opportunity existed for people like them. For years she absorbed these thoughts until they became her own reality. She saw herself as just a seamstress, destined to live paycheck to paycheck, dreaming small dreams that seemed safely within reach. But something shifted the day she decided to change what she thought about during those long hours of sewing. Instead of listening to the complaints and limitations around her, she began to think about the beautiful dresses she could design. She visualized women wearing her creations, feeling confident and beautiful. She imagined having her own shop, filled with fabrics and colors that made her heart sing. Day after day, as her hands worked on other people's alterations, her mind worked on her own transformation. She wasn't just thinking about becoming a designer, she was becoming one in her thoughts first. And slowly, inevitably, her external world began to match her internal vision. Opportunities appeared. Resources showed up. People who could help her entered her life at exactly the right moments. Within 3 years, she owned the most sought-after dress shop in her town. The same hands that once mended other people's clothes now created masterpieces that women traveled from neighboring cities to purchase. What changed? Her circumstances hadn't improved before she started thinking differently. Her thinking changed first, and everything else followed. This is how the principle works. Your external world is always working to match your internal world. Your thoughts are like a blueprint, and life is constantly building according to that blueprint. Change the blueprint, and you change what gets built. But here's where most people stumble. They want to see the change first, then they'll believe it's possible. They want proof before they're willing to adjust their thinking. They're waiting for their circumstances to improve so they can think positively, not realizing that positive thinking must come first. It's like a person standing in front of a cold fireplace saying, "Give me heat, and then I'll add wood." The wood must come first. The thought must come first. The internal change must precede the external transformation. Consider the story of a young man who stuttered so severely that speaking in public seemed impossible. Every time he opened his mouth, he thought about the words getting stuck, about people staring at him, about the embarrassment that was surely coming. These thoughts created exactly the reality he feared. But this young man made a decision that changed everything. He began to spend time each day thinking about speaking clearly and confidently. He visualized himself addressing audiences, seeing their engaged faces, feeling the smooth flow of words from his mind to his mouth. He practiced these thoughts as diligently as an athlete practices physical exercises. The stuttering didn't disappear overnight. But something more important happened. His relationship with speaking began to change. Instead of approaching conversations with dread, he began to approach them with quiet confidence. Instead of focusing on what could go wrong, he focused on his message and how he could serve others by sharing it. Within 2 years, this young man was earning his living as a public speaker, traveling from city to city, sharing his knowledge and inspiring others. The same voice that once struggled to order food in a restaurant now commanded the attention of hundreds of people at a time. His vocal cords didn't change. His brain didn't suddenly rewire itself. What changed was the dominant direction of his thoughts, and everything else followed that change. This is the great secret that successful people throughout history have understood, whether they could articulate it or not. They think differently than unsuccessful people. They don't think better thoughts because their lives are better. Watch. Their lives are better because they think better thoughts. A successful businessman doesn't think about abundance because he has money in the bank. He has money in the bank because he's been thinking thoughts of abundance. A person in a happy marriage doesn't think loving thoughts because their relationship is good. Their relationship is good because they've been thinking loving thoughts. The thought comes first, always. The external condition is always the effect, never the cause. But let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. What are you thinking about most of the time? When your mind is free to wander, where does it go? When you're walking down the street, driving in your car, or lying in bed at night, what thoughts are occupying your mental space? If you're honest with yourself, you might discover that you've been unconsciously focusing on everything you don't want in your life. You think about the bills you can't pay instead of the abundance you desire. You worry about the relationship problems instead of visualizing the love and connection you want to experience. You replay past failures instead of rehearsing future successes. And here's the thing that will shock you. Your mind doesn't know the difference between what you want and what you don't want. It only knows what you're focusing on. Think about debt all day, and you'll create more experiences with debt. Think about loneliness, and you'll find more reasons to feel alone. Think about failure, and you'll discover new ways to fall short of your goals. Your mind is like a faithful servant that says, "Your wish is my command." Whatever you consistently think about, your mind assumes that's what you want more of, and it goes to work to create exactly that in your life. This is why some people seem to have all the luck, while others attract one problem after another. The lucky ones aren't actually lucky. They're thinking about what they want instead of what they fear. They're focused on possibilities instead of problems. They're mentally rehearsing success instead of practicing failure. Right now, you have the power to completely transform your life by making one simple decision. You can choose to direct your thoughts toward what you want instead of what you don't want. You can decide to become the master of your mind instead of its victim. But this decision requires courage, because it means taking complete responsibility for your life. It means no more blaming your circumstances, your background, your education, or other people for the way things are. It means acknowledging that you are where you are because of where your thoughts have been, and you'll go where your thoughts take you from this day forward. Most people find this responsibility terrifying. They'd rather believe that life just happens to them, that they're victims of forces beyond their control. Because if they accepted the truth that their thoughts create their reality, they'd have to admit that they've been creating the very problems they've been complaining about. But for those brave enough to embrace this truth, it's the most liberating discovery of their lifetime. Because if your thoughts created the life you have now, then new thoughts can create the life you want tomorrow. The question isn't whether this principle works. The question is, are you going to use it deliberately, or are you going to let it use you? Are you going to take control of your mental garden, or are you going to let weeds grow wherever they will? Your future is being created right now, in this very moment, by the thoughts you're thinking. Every thought is a seed, and you're about to harvest whatever you've been planting. The choice of what to plant next is entirely yours. What will you choose to think about when you leave this room? What thoughts will fill your mind as you go to sleep tonight? What mental pictures will you paint as you wake up tomorrow morning? These seemingly small decisions will determine the entire course of your life. You become what you think about. This isn't just a nice saying or an inspirational quote. It's the fundamental law that governs human experience. Use it wisely, and you'll create a life beyond your wildest dreams. Ignore it, and you'll wonder why success always seems to elude your grasp. The power is in your hands. The choice is yours. What will you think about?